Also, this week, there was a decision by the Supreme Court here in the state of Missouri. And it involves our friend Hasha McQueen, who is calling into the show right now. Hasha, how are you?
I'm doing fine. Thanks, Mark.
Well, I'm glad we've gotten to have you on 2 weeks in a row. That's a score.
Right.
Although I'm sorry that it's for the outcome that it is in this case. So just to quickly fill people in on the background of your battle over your frozen embryos, this has now had gotten all the way to the Missouri Supreme Court. Give us the cliff notes on how we got to where we are today.
Well, I had 4 embryos to begin with. 2 of them are my twin boys that are 9 now. The other 2 are frozen. This would happen when we were married, and at the time we had signed an agreement and said that if we divorced, I would get the 2 remaining embryos. Well, the divorce happened, and then the trial court threw the contract out and said no, that his right to not procreate trumps my right to procreate, and therefore I don't have the children. Went up to the appellate court. The appellate court agreed with the trial court, and they actually created a new category of law that doesn't exist in Missouri, any Missouri statute. It's called property with special character, but again, they called my embryos property. So we filed for a rehearing. It got denied, and then we filed up to the Missouri Supreme Court. We figured this was a very important issue for people in Missouri to decide what to do in these cases. The Missouri Supreme Court turned it down. They refused to review it.
So you said they referred to your embryos as property.
Yes.
It strikes me that at the basis of this, you're getting to the question of when is a life a life?
Right. And see, Missouri has a statute, it's 1.205, that states, that any statutes should be construed in accordance with that statute. And it says life begins in conception, and all life is afforded all the rights and privileges and immunities of everybody else. And so that was what we were going off of. But the Missouri appellate court just went off the rails. And because they didn't want to give me the embryos, this is happening all over the United States, by the way. It's not just my case. There's about a dozen cases, and they're all going in that direction where if you have an agreement to give it to the spouse, they strike it down for whatever reason and no reason. And there's this overarching idea that his right not to have those children overrides my right to have them. And they went out of their way, like I said, to create a new category of law that doesn't exist in Missouri. I mean, legislating for the bench, absolutely 100%.
Your option now is to take this straight to the Supreme Court, correct?
Yes, to the U.S. Supreme Court, right.
I wonder out loud here if you wouldn't be better off waiting until they get Judge Gorsuch seated.
Well, we have 90 days in which to do it, so there's timelines that we have to do. Now they'll go out of session, I guess, at the end of June or July. I'm not quite sure of their schedule, but then everything will be kind of on hold until they get back in October. We don't know what's going to happen, but there's a constitutional question here because the opposition they said there is a U.S. constitutional right not to procreate, and that trumps anybody's right to procreate. That was the argument they were making. They were basing it on dicta and other U.S. laws or U.S. cases like Roe v. Wade. Again, when I say dicta, it just means that things that they said in the agreement but are not binding as law, and you don't have to follow it. So that's what they're doing. And so I think our case, if any, has a good chance.
Well, we should remind people that you're also an attorney.
I am an attorney. I also have a bill going through the House. I worked with it with John McCarty, Representative John McCarty. He introduced it. It's House Bill 112, and it has not been assigned committee yet, but I have been calling legislators this week to get them to put it on committee because basically what my bill does is allows people like me, where these cases are brought in front of the court, to err on the side of allowing those embryos to grow and develop and give them with the parent that wants them. And it allows cutting off the other parent from child support or custody or anything if that's what they want as well. And
right.
I think we need to make a stand here in Missouri because, I mean, now the law in Missouri is embryos are property. So we're back to the Dred decision.
Right.
Dred Scott decision. I mean, it's the same thing. We're saying embryos are property now in Missouri.
Well, I think it's sad that it's gone to this. Would you get a decision then if they chose to hear it directly from the Supreme Court, or would they assign it to a lower court?
No, if the U.S. Supreme Court decides they're going to take it, and then we would go through all the procedures we need to go through for arguing at the U.S. Supreme Court.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Well, I wish you the best of luck with this. I hope that you get the answer that you're seeking here. I appreciate you giving me some time, though.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. Take care of yourself. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. What a sticky case there. It's a shame that you've got law on the books in the state of Missouri that says life begins at conception, and yet this case is being treated as more of a property situation. As Hush has told me before, as far as she's concerned, those two frozen embryos are just as much her children as the two that have been born and are now 9 years old. For that reason, I'd like to see a court make a decision in her favor here. Mike, you're on the air.
Yeah, one question I would have, basically, looking at it from a father's standpoint, I guess a little bit of a devil's advocate, but is she seeking any type of support or joint custody with the former father?
No, I don't think she wants that or requires that at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm definitely very pro-life. It just kind of seems once you get to the point where you're, warehousing embryos, it does get into a very, kind of gray area.
Well, and I, it's been a while since Hush and I had that discussion, but I think knowing other people who've gone through in vitro and other attempts, if they've had trouble conceiving, you often end up with multiple embryos, and if you choose not to carry them all at the same time and you believe in life and you don't want to destroy them, then you freeze them, but then you have these questions that linger over when life begins. And if that's a life that's in there...
You have a kid that has like a terminal illness, and freeze the kid and hope you could revive it. So, I know they're viable and so on, but it does start to get into, it's like... if you value life that much, is suspending it temporarily or maybe indefinitely? What happens if they pass away? What are they going to do with this woman's embryos? It introduces a lot of other questions.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. It definitely raises a lot of those questions. There's no doubt about it. Let me see here. Lots of phone calls coming in on this. Let me see who I'm going to go to. Kevin, you're on the air.
What's going on, Mark?
How are you?
So, really good. So this doesn't make sense to me. Coming from, all right, so if I'm single and I sleep with a woman and I get her pregnant, I don't have a choice whether or not she has the baby. If she wants it, she gets it. Okay.
Correct.
Now in this scenario, now they were married, all this stuff. So let's say she gets these embryos and then she wants to sit on them for another 5 years. Now we don't know why they got divorced or anything like that. Let's now this guy gets remarried and he has kids with his current wife, and then just to be spiteful, 2 years after he has one, she gets pregnant with his kids again. So now he's got the two 9-year-olds, he's got a 3-year-old with his current wife, and then he's got a baby with his ex-wife. This completely just screws this guy's life up. That he's got all these kids and got to explain everything to everybody, saying, no, look, I'm not back with my ex-wife. Nothing happened. You know what I mean? It's just really...
Yeah, I guess so. But at the same time, in this particular case, they were married, and they signed an agreement that said if we ever get divorced, she gets the embryos. So that agreement was signed, and he agreed to that, and then went to court and got a court to invalidate it. So...
Yeah, that's not cool, but just in anything, maybe say, hey, look, after a divorce, you have 90 days to implant these things. You know what I mean? You have a certain time period that, because you don't want some woman sitting on these embryos just to, mess with some guy's life.
Yeah, Kevin, I see the bigger question here, but I don't know how many people would do that out of spite. I think the suggestion is that somebody would want to do that out of spite to hurt the guy somehow. I guess that could happen, but it's certainly not the case in this situation.